Hello, it's 12:30 and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. I'm so excited that you're joining us again here today for another episode of the TV show. We're doing this every day this week as part of International Women's Day, and I'm so excited that you're here and joining us again for these fabulous interviews and these wonderful and dynamic and incredible women that have agreed to be on the show. And today is no exception. Today I have the amazing Monica Rosenfeld is my dear, dear guest on the show today. So Monica's background briefly is that she's this amazing media and branding personality specialist. She can help you to magnify your message. With over 2 decades experience, Monica has a wealth of experience to help you find the angle, find the way to speak to media, and also to help you to find the key words and the key stories that you need to be able to share your message. And it's my great delight and honour to have you here today, Monica. And do you want to let people know a little bit about yourself as well?
Sure. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm really thrilled to be here today. So thank you. So as Michelle said, I am the media magnifier, but I wasn't born this way, obviously. So the way I came to be the media magnifier is a long story, but I guess it started off when I was living in London after doing a Bachelor of Arts at university. I ended up working for a production company as sort of the receptionist slave, taking up jackets, making really bad coffee, until one day the production assistant quit from the fashion and lifestyle documentary series that was being made, and I literally begged for to be given a go, and I was given a go. And it was fantastic. So I was part of a very small team running around the streets of London, literally running, interviewing the likes of Manola Blahnik and Vivienne Westwood. And I mean, I had to pinch myself. There were lots of those moments. But alas, my visa ran out and it was time to come to Australia because I was really sick of London winter. And I ended up getting a job at a Getaway at Channel 9 and then a Current Affair. And it was while I was at a Current Affair that I learned how not to do PR, because I had literally people calling me all day long, business owners, marketing managers, you know, very dodgy and angry neighbours, all wanting their story on air, but having no clue how to get that cut through with a busy producer or journalist who has literally 30 seconds to listen to your pitch. So a couple of years in, I decided that I could probably do a better job than a lot of the people that I was, you know, talking to. And I didn't really want to start from the bottom again because, you know, I was 25 and feeling very mature. So I thought, why not just start my own business? So that was in the year 2000, 21 years ago. And now I've pivoted. I do have a few key clients, but I've pivoted into educating and inspiring people in how to magnify their messages. So now I speak at conferences, corporate lunch and learns, in-house training on that very topic.
Wow, and I can really imagine you there, Monica, running around and meeting the people, the likes of the Vivienne Westwoods, who can only, you know, think about those famous names today, that those days back in London, I'm sure, were a very different time.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was, you know, I went to university for 3 years, but I learned so much more in the 3 years that I was actually living and working overseas. And it was like the school of life, essentially, which I feel is really important. That's where you get your biggest lessons.
It's so true. I think that universities or any kind of education can really help you to learn. Yeah. But life itself is where you get that experience, and you also sort out a way to sort out what is real and what is valid and what's not valid. I mean, how often do we use obtuse angles, for example? I mean, yeah. That we all learnt about them.
Exactly.
And obtuse angles kind of leads me into the obtuseness of everybody on the show, and everybody's had such wonderful responses. What do you think success is after this great life and career that you've built means to you?
Okay, no, great question. Look, personally, I really think success to me means being happy And I know that's a bit of a cliche, so I'll expand on that a little bit. To me, happiness means having a balance in my life. So the way I balance my life is through feeling engaged and inspired with the work that I'm doing, feeling connected with my friends and my family, having plenty of time out to just be silly, have fun, and smell the roses, and really work on my own self-care and give myself that self-care. And yeah, I think they're the main things. If those three plates are kind of spinning nicely, and also physical health, that's the other one. So as long as those plates are spinning nicely, I feel balanced and happy. But I also think success to me now means knowing what I'm getting up in the morning for. You know, why am I getting up? What is my purpose? And I don't think everyone needs to go really deep and know what their purpose is. It can be as small as, can be tiny, or it can be massive. But for me, my purpose is all about helping people magnify their message, share their stories, essentially, so that they can help other people and help themselves at the same time. So that's what I get out of bed for every day, and that's what makes me feel successful and happy.
That's wonderful, and that's so fabulous that you have such clarity around that. I wish everybody had as much clarity around what it is that brings them happiness. I think you're so right in saying that, success means happiness, but then people don't necessarily have that great understanding about what it is that brings them happiness.
Yeah.
They may be able to say some of the more obvious, like good health or good family, good relationships, but knowing what your purpose is and knowing that that's what you get out of bed in the morning for, I think that that's really wonderful, Monica. And I'm fascinated.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm fascinated by how much do you think that might have been developed or evolved out of your time in media, because that's not necessarily such a well-balanced world.
Yeah. To be honest, when I was younger, I didn't give a moment's thought as to what makes me happy or what my purpose was. I just wanted to get a job that I felt that I was, enjoying and learning something and progressing my career. And then I had my 3 children, and even then I didn't think about what my purpose was or what made me happy. It's really only now that my kids are a bit older and they're 15, 13 and 10, and I'm in my 40s, so I'm 46, and I guess you can say it's the classic midlife crisis. But it's really only in the last sort of 5 to 6 years that I've thought about, okay, well, what does make me happy? What is my purpose, and what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? So, but I think it's hard to have that when you're very young, and so a lot of people out there listening will probably have children. And you I want to stick my head on their shoulders sometimes, just the learnings that I've had, but then I realize that they're not going to have had that same life experience, so they don't get it yet, and they're not meant to get it. They've got their own journey. Sometimes I just wish I could sort of help them speed it up a little bit, but everyone has to go through their path to find their way.
Well, and I think that that's part of the beauty of this show is that many of the guests are a little bit older and have had a little bit more life experience. So it is about sharing that experience, and that's what these questions are about as we're talking about them. Because, I agree completely. When you've got a young family, there really is nothing but getting through the days with that young family. Thinking about what your life purpose is or what you'd like to do in your spare time when you don't have any.
I think your purpose is that glass of wine at the end of the day when they've all gone to bed. That's it.
That's it. And having all the school lunches done and everything all set up for the next day. And then that's, utopia for you.
Well, actually, I'm a bit of a different parent. From a very young age, my kids have all made their own lunches. I think from the age of 8, I think they all have made their own lunches. So I know this talk isn't about parenting, but I really believe in bringing up independent kids who sort of are responsible for their things. But yes, that's a whole other topic that we can talk about another time.
Well, and that's why I love these conversations, because they kind of drift into different topic areas. But coming back to the topic that I'm sure many people have tuned in for today, do you want to share it with us? I'm very interested in the link between imposter syndrome and magnifying your message. And do you want to share maybe 3 tips that people can use to get through that? I think of imposter syndrome as being something that we all go through when we're kind of moving out of our comfort zone and stretching ourselves a little bit.
Sure.
But there would be tips and tricks. So what would you suggest?
Look, so often I talk to clients, and particularly women, and I tell them how I feel I can magnify their message in the media. And they're always very doubtful. They sort of think, am I really important enough? Is what I have to say that interesting? My life's pretty boring. And what I say is, or my business is boring. And I just have to refute them and say, no, absolutely not. You have expertise and stories to share. And by sharing them, you are giving value to others. So one tip I say is, don't think about it as sort of tooting your own horn and showing off, and think of it as sharing your expertise with others so that you can help them. And actually, if you go to the media with that frame of mind, you're so much more likely to have a newsworthy angle than going to the media saying, I'm amazing, my business is amazing, do a story about it. So that's one. 2, I would say just start in some way. So to give you an example, I've started doing a video every Monday. It's called Magnify Monday Moment on LinkedIn. And I started 2 years ago, and I've done it just about every single Monday since. I've taken holidays every now and then. But what I found was that I was getting feedback from people saying that the video tips are really helping them. And that really spurred me on to keep doing it. So it's really just taking the first step, because once you sort of reach up from your feeling of, oh, I'm not important, I've got nothing valid to say, to actually stepping out and taking that first step in whichever way you're going to do it, the momentum will start getting created by the feedback you're getting from the people who are telling you that you are giving them value. And particularly as women, I think, I'm maybe generalizing, but we're so much about giving value. So that's where I feel I can help women change their mindset. Don't think about it as showing off. Think about it as, I can help not just one person, millions of people, if you're magnifying your message through the media particularly. And when you do that, it's your visibility increases, your credibility increases, and your confidence will increase as well, which will lead to you doing more and more. And then we won't be able to stop you. You'll just, you'll go and pitch your own TV show, and you'll be the leader in your field. So. Yeah.
I can't agree more, especially last year during COVID. I actually started the Mindful Moments with Michele snippets, which was similar to what you're describing. And the feedback that I got from people during COVID was just priceless, because all of the skills and expertise that I have around mindset, which I was sharing with people, but everybody being online for COVID and seeing these snippets was just like mind-blowing at how much my reach and influence changed, because I could assist people. It was me doing, like you're saying, and sharing, doing what your skills and expertise are. And then the feedback that I got, kept thinking, gee, I'm just doing my little bit with COVID. Yeah. But the feedback I got was like, it was so life-changing for people.
And you're helping people, which is awesome. But at the same time, you're positioning yourself as an expert, which is just great for your business and your career, essentially.
It is. And that's like the byproduct of doing what you love, which is just amazing. And so is there a third tip that you would like to share with people?
The third tip that I would say is I do a lot of meditation, but not just, deep breathing. I sort of get to a certain deep centered state, and then I create a visualization. So you know, so I would visualize yourself, you know, let's say on a morning TV program, where you're the one being interviewed about your topic that you're an expert in and that you're passionate about. Visualize it, see it, believe it, and then thank the universe for delivering it to you. And then either serendipity or you will potentially take the next steps to make that happen. So I believe in dreaming big, and we need help from our brain to dream big. And I haven't made this stuff up. I've done lots and lots of different courses. So this isn't my methodology. This is just stuff I've learned over the years. But I think it works for me, and it works for a lot of other people.
It really does, that whole visioning. And that's where I'm interested in, you know, the link between the imposter syndrome and then practicing. So it's a real NLP technique, that one of imagining yourself doing it. So you see yourself on the stage or on a TV show like this, and you see yourself doing what you do and what you're an expert or great in, and the world doesn't end. And so those rehearsals, those walkthroughs do enable your brain to actually practice and go through all of that fear and reaction prior to it becoming live and prior to it happening.
Well, the way I look at it, the way I've heard it talked about, most people have to see things to believe it, but in this way you're believing it and then you'll see it happen. So it's sort of changing the order of the way we know things to happen. So and if you believe it's going to happen, if you know it's true, if you and you understand the reason why you want it to happen, and that reason is to serve others and to add value to others, and then you put an intention and a feeling to how you'll feel once it's happened, then just watch it happen, essentially, because it will happen.
It will. In fact, one of my wonderful stories around this is with Jim Carrey, the one about how he wrote himself a check for $1 million and signed it and dated it. And he did this way before he was famous and rich, etc. And I think it's a great example of where, when you put it out there and believe it and live and breathe it, it's a little bit like The Secret as well, and those other kind of programs about energy where when you're programming the energy around you.
I fully believe in all of that stuff, and it's not, to me, it's not woo-woo stuff. It's actually quite scientific, and it's there's a lot to be said for that.
What would you say, though, has been one of the times where you have maybe had the hardest time to work through your own imposter syndrome, where you thought, oh, you know, who am I and who am I to be doing this?
Well, I have a very good example for you. About 2.5 years, I started on a journey of stand-up comedy. So I was curious about stand-up comedy. I loved watching it, and I found myself going about my day-to-day life and I kept observing scenarios that I thought could work really well in a comedy scene, like a stand-up set, but I had no clue how I would do that or where I would start. So eventually I took that first step, you know, and I did a course, and then I did another course, and I've now been performing all over Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide, and for nearly 2.5 years. But that first, there's a lot of imposter syndrome when you're doing comedy, but the very first time I stood on stage, I was so nervous. And I'm a speaker, so speaking doesn't make me nervous anymore. Well, you know, obviously get a butterfly a few minutes before being called up on stage, but it's comedy is a whole different kettle of fish. And so probably for a month before, I just had wobbly legs just at the mere thought of it. And I really was saying to myself, what am I doing? Who the hell do I think I am, thinking I'm a comedian? And why am I doing this? So I really just had to overcome that by, one, the visualizing that we've been talking about, but two, taking that first step and being brave enough to take that first step. So I took that first step. That was my very first show. And I got great feedback. Okay, by all means, it was not my best performance because it was my very first, but I got enough very good feedback, and not just from friends, because I don't trust what friends say. It's when strangers come up to me and say, I love that joke, or I love what you did, that I think, okay, I believe you. You don't need to make me feel better. But I got good feedback, but more importantly, I really enjoyed it. And then I just kept going with it and kept progressing it. And now I'm just I continue to push myself out of my comfort zone. So I'm trying to write different styles of material, and perform on bigger stages. And actually my biggest stage, which was my biggest fear, obviously, at the time, was performing at the Sydney Opera House to a huge audience of like over 300 people. And it was part of a fundraising media gala. So it was a big stretch, because I'd only been doing comedy for about 6 months. But I think what I'm getting to is you need to break through the fear first, and you need to take a tiny step first, and then you need to, if you're enjoying it and you want to keep doing whatever it is, whether you're starting a new business or you want to go for a new role within your corporate organization, it's taking the baby step first, and then, you know, letting the momentum build from there.
That's something that I completely agree with. I work a lot with my clients on what I call micro steps. So it's very much about, and I know it's a cliche, you know, every journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, but it's so true with whatever you want to do. And so that's why I use this concept of micro steps with people, because even that 6 months prior to being on the stage at the Sydney Opera House, you would have done courses, you would have had practice. So you didn't go from nothing to the Opera House, even though at that time that was like the biggest stretch that you were doing. Exactly. I'm always reminded when we talk about this topic of that wonderful Jim Carrey movie called Yes Man, where he had to say yes to everything. And by living in that way and saying yes to everything, you then start to open up so many more possibilities and ideas, and grow in ways that you probably could never have even imagined.
Yeah, and
so I was going to say the imposter syndrome that we're talking about today, and that holds many women back, is something that when you're saying yes, it becomes a bit of a pattern, and it gets harder to go yes, 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 no. It's actually going yes, 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 and then you find that you're doing things like stand-up comedy or other things that people might necessarily rather than die than do.
And it doesn't have to be stand-up, it can be anything, you know. So stand-up's my shtick. Other people want to run a marathon. Now, you will not get me running a marathon. It just doesn't do anything for me. The thought or the idea of that, I'll leave that to other people. So, you know, it doesn't even have to be marathon. It can be something a lot smaller. But the third thing I would say, well, I don't know if we're up to third, but the other thing that I find really important is mixing with people that you admire within that thing that you want to do. So if you want to run a marathon, hang out with people who have run marathons or who are training to run a marathon. As a comedian, I mix with other comics who are, one, more established than myself, or two, sort of at my level, and we help each other in writing sessions. We help each other get a leg up, so get on different stages by opening up our networks. And that helps you also come out of the imposter syndrome, because it's normalized. You know, like if you don't hang out with any comedians and you want to be a comedian, it feels a bit weird. Whereas now I've got a whole network of comedians, it almost feels weird to me when I meet someone and they don't want to be a comedian, because I'm so used to hanging out with comedians who are desperate to get on stage. So it normalizes it for you, and I think that's what makes it easier to keep it going, and to keep taking those steps.
I think that's a really big key, and it's something that people might not necessarily realise can be such a helpful thing when you go through the imposter syndrome stages of growth, that if you want to, you know, be a successful businesswoman, then, you know, there's groups like Women on Boards that you can go along to the different sessions, and you can meet other women who are board members. The same with, you know, if you want to do a marathon or become a comedian, you can go and hang out with groups of people that are in those areas. And that, for me, is one of the beauties of technology now. It's so easy to find tribes of people that are already doing some of the things that you might be thinking, oh, I'd like to write a book, or I'd like to this, or I'd like to that.
Yeah.
You can go and find groups where there's people that have written books. And you and I are in the professional speakers group, which is, again, a wonderful tribe of people that all are speaking and looking at what topics are, you know, flavour of the year or flavour of the month. And also last year with COVID, everybody had to transition from doing speaking in person to then doing speaking virtually like this and running different things. So we as a tribe and as a group went through the learning curve of how does this work, and we're there to support each other. So I can't speak highly enough about when you're in that position of wanting to expand and grow and move through something like imposter syndrome, surrounding yourself with a similar group of people. And I'm sure your experience was the same with professional speakers. Everybody there was really welcoming and very helpful. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're used to people coming in, and some of them, you know, the Rodney Marks and others that have been in that space for many, many years, were just really lovely and welcoming to complete novices like I was when I first joined it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I found that as well.
Yeah, and so the other thing with technology is that all of these different groups are available online, so you don't need to necessarily be in the same state or the same country anymore. You can actually join different groups and look at those different hobbies and try them out, try them on, see what works and what doesn't work. And I think the same with like writing a book or something. That's something that a lot of people might think about, but now they can meet other people that are thinking about it and check in with that.
Yeah.
So I think we actually got to 4 points then. So to recap, which was wonderful. I love it when we kind of go over points. So sharing your expertise, that was wonderful. Step 1. Just starting. Step 2. Using visualization through meditation. Step 3. And surrounding yourself with the right people and the right tribe.
Yeah.
So I might just get you to talk a little bit while we've got people online. If people want to ask any questions of Monica or myself, then now is the time to do it. I'll just check here on all of the live streaming spaces. If anybody has any questions, I can see one that's come through, and it must be the same fan every day, because they're constantly asking, what advice would you give your younger self, Monica?
Good question. Well, the advice I would give my younger self is stop worrying. You know, I was a big worrier, and I was up till very recently worrying a lot. Actually, the one thing that stopped me worrying was last year I went to a talk put on by Business Chicks with Elizabeth Gilbert, and her whole hour talk was about how women have to stop worrying. And it really made such a huge impact on me. What she said made such sense to me. And then COVID hit, and I should have been worrying more than ever, but everything was so out of my control that I actually stopped worrying and started going with the flow, because there was no other thing to do. So stop worrying, because I think I've wasted so many hours of my life just worrying about little things and over-analysing things. And also that you can create your reality through, you know, intentionally, you know, don't just plod from here to there, but think about what you want to do and, you know, create that reality, and dream big. Don't play small in life. I want to live a big life. And yes, so dream big, the sky's your limit. And I think they're the main things that I would have told myself.
That's wonderful. And we're nearly out of time, but I'm sure people would love to connect with you. So how can they find you after today's show?
The best way find me is through LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I respond to messages, and I'm posting a lot with giving lots of valuable tips, I hope, or that's what I've heard. So just find me at Monica Rosenfeld. So it's Monica with a C, and then Rosenfeld is Rosenfeld. Or visit my website, which is monicarosenfeld.com. And there's a lot of information on there about what I do. So yes, I'd love to see you in LinkedIn. And if you do connect with me through LinkedIn, let me know that you've sort of come through this Michelle's sort of TV program from this week. I'd love to know that.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your valuable insights and your time today, Monica. It's been really, really lovely having you on the show today.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Michelle. I've had a ball. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for coming again today. It's been another value-packed half hour as part of the International Women's Day show this week. I've been so honoured to have Monica as my guest today, and tomorrow I've got an extra special treat, just as much as Monica and Nina for you. We have the amazing Dr. Louise Marler as our guest. So stay tuned for tomorrow at 12:30 Tuesday. And until then, be great, be fabulous, and be you.